We have a very specific set of things that every first chapter needs to include. We're going to ask Justin to lead the group, and I'm going to do the retelling test for Ariel's first chapter. So normally when we start one of these sessions, we have Ariel do her minimum complete story. So we can get an idea of what the story is, and then we're going to figure out whether the chapter aligned with that story, whether it progressed the story successfully. When you have a first chapter, it's a little bit different because the story is just getting started. We have a very specific set of things that every first chapter needs to include. It has to have a foundation, right? There has to be a character and a world, not perfectly developed, but established well enough that the reader is interested in them and starts getting to know them. Secondly, we need to have a theme and conflict, right? Some kind of energy, drama that's going to motivate the reader to continue. And then finally, we need direction, right? We need an inciting incident that launches the story. So how do we figure out if our first chapter is good enough, right? Remember, a first chapter is supposed to be a sample. Just like you go into Costco, they hand it to you, right? They don't hand you a piece of peanut butter, however. What they hand you is a peanut butter sandwich. So even though they're selling peanut butter, that peanut butter has to be included with bread and jelly, etc., in order for you to get a good taste. And that's what we're trying to do in a first chapter. Our job as a marketer / promoter is to get that first chapter into as many genre readers' hands as possible. Then they get that taste, yum, yum, right? They think it's delicious. Then they click buy. So our test for a first chapter isn't whether we like it, right? It isn't whether someone else gives us a huge thumbs up. It's whether after reading it, a volunteer can recall all these elements so they can begin to reconstruct the story in their mind. If they can't recall them, that means an element is missing. And then in turn, that means that, you know, either your character or world isn't there, or it isn't there sufficiently to start the story. Or alternatively, there's no conflict, right? You haven't sort of laid the seed for a theme. Or third, the inciting incident doesn't have enough to engage the reader and provide a sense of direction. Right? Remember, an inciting incident is the start of empathy. And the way you get empathy is by having the reader make a choice along with the character, right? A vicarious decision, what people often call agency. All right. So then our test is going to be whether or not those elements are there, whether they stick in the reader's head, and whether the reader is enthusiastic about continuing. Now, the issue is what? You don't have unlimited words, right? Amazon and other places, including us, recommend that a first chapter is about 3,000 words. That's about how much a person can read in a sitting. So all of those elements, things, have to be in your first chapter. And then the retelling test is geared to ensure that those things are in your first chapter. So a good retelling test, the reader can rattle those things off enthusiastically. A bad retelling test, they're going to be sort of looking around and saying what? All right. Thoughts? So Justin, you ready? So I was going to model this for you guys today because I don't know if you've been exposed to our retelling test before, and I thought this might be the best way to do it. So whenever you're ready, Justin.
Yeah, so based on, sorry, I glitched out for a second. So based on Ariel's first chapter, Adam, would you mind retelling it for us?
In your own words.
In your own words.
Great. All right, so let me see. There's a dragon and his rider, and the dragon's name is Benny, and the rider's name is Rema, and they're telepathic, which is very cool. Something happened to them, and they're poor and desperate. I wasn't exactly sure why, but apparently something went wrong. So they get a gig, right? And the gig is, I can't remember. I think it's called Couchcella, Cavecella. Anyway, it seemed like that was supposed to be a Coachella analog, which was interesting, right? And I wasn't quite sure on what was going to happen, but this gig was, you know, trying to be security, I guess, and they were hired. Unfortunately, Benny was lying about his identity. I guess they didn't want to get caught by the first guy who was the bad person who was hunting them. Can't remember. But then, you know, because he was lying, they got caught up somehow in the lie. There was this girl that Rema was attracted to. I can't remember what her name was. And then, well, it turns out there were actually some murders going on at the rock festival in the past, and now they have to sort of investigate the murders. That's it.
Okay. All that happens in the first chapter?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so based on that alone, I mean, it seems like we've got a foundation of sorts here. You harked a lot on what the world was and the characters, so those stuck out to you. But what would you say based off of this this chapter alone is the inciting incident of the rest of the book?
Well, the inciting incident is a choice that the main character makes. I'm not sure. It can either be them having to work at a concert instead of being bounty hunters like they should be, or it could be something about the woman that Rema's interested in, and then there's a chance it's something about the murders.
So it feels like, based on our three things that a first chapter needs, that there might be a conflicting conflict here, right? There's an overarching conflict that you've talked about that might also be the inciting incident, but then there's the particular one that happens in this first chapter, which is about what this mystery is going to be about, right? To me, it sounds that this is a series, right? But this particular book is dealing with the specific mystery that they're going into because of their debt. Does that sound right?
Is that a question? I think so, yeah.
I'm just curious if that came through or if that was clear.
Now that you say it, I think it's clear.
Okay. What would you say the theme is based on just this chapter?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, I think the theme is obviously friendship, right? Benny and Rema are friends. I didn't see anything particularly threatening their friendship. So I'm not sure that's a theme. She's interested in this other woman. I'm not sure if that's a theme. And then they're trying to catch someone who's been killing people, and they're poor. So the theme must involve money somehow. Oh, and there's some shadow people hunting them, so they're probably bad. Shadow wielders, I think.
Okay. Oh gosh. Oh, I'm trying to think of another question. So, I mean, where do you think, based on just this chapter, where do you feel like the rest of this book is going?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had a pretty good sense of it. I think they're gonna have to solve these murders, and then I think she's probably gonna hook up with that woman. But then she had an ex-girlfriend, now that I think about it, so she might hook up with her. So there's clearly some kind of romantic thing going on. And I'm guessing hopefully they'll get money and defeat the shadow wielders at the end.
It sounds like there are a lot of things that are set up in this first chapter. If you had to choose what was the most prominent element that was set up in this first chapter, what would it be?
Well, the thing I was most noticed was their telepathy, right? And Benny kept singing songs, and I thought they were just very cute and hilarious.
And is the mechanics of the telepathy, does that feel like clear to you? Does that feel explained? Or does it need to be in your eyes?
It was perfect. I totally got that.
Great. what was the extra thing that you got out of this beyond a story? What was the bonus material that you got out of it?
I just really liked Benny. I thought he was cool. And I think that, I thought it was very cute the way they set up. I can't remember, was it cave cella or couch cella? It was clearly supposed to be Coachella. I thought the descriptions were very interesting. I really liked I like those elements. I just wasn't so sure about sort of the story elements, I guess.
So you like the characters? The characters are lovable, and also you enjoyed the real world parallels in this fantasy world.
Yeah, and I identified with Rema. I thought Rema was an interesting hero, and I thought she came across really like a person to me, and an interesting person.
Well, let me ask you, what was it in this first chapter with Rema that you identified with? Like, what stuck out to you?
I can't put my finger on it, but I would say, she was kind of frustrated with Benny, trying to do her best in the world, and yet brave. And obviously, she wanted some kind of romantic interest, so she had trouble with that, which is, something that happens to all of us.
I think the concept of, even though this is a fantasy world, the concept of having to do things that we don't necessarily enjoy for money is a very relatable aspect. A lot of people can get into, right? Like you've got these characters that are obviously larger than life, but they're doing something that's very real to you and me and everyone, which is, sometimes we have to get by.
Good, absolutely. So now Justin will say thank you, and Ariel will say thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Adam, for your thoughts. And thank you, Ariel.
You're very welcome. So 2 quick things. Adam. So I just tried to model this because we didn't have a naive volunteer for today. So the first thing is you want to find a naive volunteer. So what does that mean? It's social science mumbo jumbo, but it means someone that hasn't been exposed to the story already. Right? You don't want your best friend who's read 5 drafts to do this test in your first chapter. You don't want your mom to do it, right? You want someone who's in the genre, so they'll be familiar with the conventions and enthusiastic about it, who hasn't really been exposed to the project. That is going to be the best volunteer to do this test. And then the second observation is this isn't a test of the volunteer. Right? This is a test to see whether the chapter has what it needs to successfully launch the book. And either it does or it doesn't. Right? And those are the 2 points. So Ariel, let's turn to the author. How do you think it went?
I think the main aspects of like Benny and Rema showed up really strong, which was great, and like you catching the like Coachella setup, silly stuff. It was helpful to know that like the inciting incident, you weren't sure exactly what it was. Let's see, what else did I have down here? And also it sounds like trying to remember why they were like poor and desperate. So it was kind of helpful to hear like what things like didn't come through as clearly, so I can get a better handle on that.
Good. So I think you hit the nail on the head, right? A little bit more inciting incident to get the story moving.
Yeah.
And there's a tenant, I think it's definitely fantasy, probably romantasy. There's a tendency to spend a lot of time on world building and character, which is fine. But one thing that you did really well in this chapter was you set it up so that the situation had so much overlap with our everyday lives, right? Presumably every one of your readers has been to a concert or festival of some kind. Being backstage at a festival is something you instantly recognize. Now you insert a bounty hunting dragon and his rider there. Okay, I'll give you that, right? I'm not saying there's not value in their conversations and telepathy. There is.
Yeah.
But what that does mean is you can cut out a lot of stuff. And I actually said that too strongly. There's not too much fat to trim here. I think the real issue is one of sequence.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So the one thing I'm going to recommend you try is there's an opening line here. So oftentimes, this happens a lot, is you write your first chapter. So how many drafts is this, Ariel?
This is the first.
Okay. And you just keep writing opening line after opening line after opening line, which is great because now you have a lot of opening lines to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
And the one I would suggest is, I was beginning to regret how my desperation has led me to put Benny in charge of finding a high-paying, inconspicuous job.
That's the
I think it's in paragraph 5 or 6 now. But, you know, we authors, the most important thing we control is sequence. Putting that first is going to set up the story.
Yeah.
The backstory on Killian Nocturne, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need that,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
We do need to know she's desperate, and then we
Mhm.
explain the desperation later. I thought, just 2 more minor comments. I would have a little more staging in the introduction to Serafina.
Okay.
So the thing we want to avoid is disorientation. I didn't get how they came from where they entered the contest to the point that they were talking to Serafina.
Okay.
And then that's it, right? The reveal is they're caught on identity theft, right? So then you have to make a choice, right? Which one of these is the choice that's going to launch the story? And I outlined 3 of them. Any one of them could be fine.
Okay.
But that's very minor, right?
Okay.
This is just a spoiler alert. This is not the first time Ariel has worked on the Benny novel. It's great, right? It's funny. It's light. Again, effective that you had this relatable situation, but new. The telepathy was much clearer on this version than previous versions of Benny. And I think the most important and best thing you did is that Benny has taken the lead in interacting with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Very good choice, because that means that he's more involved in the action. And Rema is also involved in the action, but he's not just sort of hanging around in the background talking to Rema. He's actually doing stuff and interacting. Very, very good. All right. Thoughts, Ariel?
Oh, super helpful. I think Justin, did you read one of my Benny and Remas from like early on?
Yeah, I read the
Okay.
first chunk that you.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, super helpful. I love the idea of like, because yeah, this is just my first draft, and it's really helpful to hear, Adam, when you suggest like different spots to start. And I love that one that I was beginning to regret putting Benny in charge. I think it'd be really fun. Also just having like readers come back to this world, I think them just seeing Benny's name in the first like sentence would just be so exciting for them. There was a few even jokes I have in this that like I've written like half of this already that I could like kind of like pick and choose where I can put it. They're pretty easy to like move around to kind of like do the sequencing, some more orientation. Anyways, I'll play around with it.
Good. Excellent. I think it's great. So Benny and Rema's out, self-published.
Mm-hmm.
What's the title?
It's titled "The Fuckery and Feign Fate."
Oh,
It's that
now
one.
I remember. I forgot
Yeah.
that was Benny.
Yeah.
Why did I think it was someone else? Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Awesome. Keep going. So what's your plan going forward?
My plan going forward is actually to try and finish this first draft by the weekend. And then
First draft of the novel?
yeah, the other one I did it in 4 days. So I'm trying I started it.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's kind of
That
crazy.
is speed.
Yeah. I definitely don't have that much speed, but still I started it last weekend, so my goal is to finish it because I want to see how many of these I feel like this is my 2026 goals. How many of these can I get out?
Wow. Well, so much for a novel takes 8 to 12 months, huh?
Well, it took me like 9 months to figure them out, and then I could like then slam it out. I feel like it was so much for the first one. It was like 9 months of figuring out all their character story stuff, and then it made the writing process so fast.
Good. Well, one thing's totally clear is you have the character of Benny nailed. I think Rema's nailed too. So the thing I would probably work on is we're about to do the continuity and value delivery sheet for Justin. Specifically, we're going to look at plot continuity and motivation, momentum. I think that'll help for this a lot, especially if you're going to write in 4 days. That would be extremely impressive. All right, great, Ariel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bardsy delivers the tools, guidance, and support you need to produce compelling novels. Our well-researched and thoroughly tested approach includes our minimum complete story, a 90-second exercise that keeps your writing on track while fueling creativity. Bardsy Publishability Index, a 23-dimension checklist that offers attainable goals and provides actionable feedback. And our brand new comprehensive character developer that helps you construct unforgettable characters. Come see for yourself at Bardsy.com today. Try our workshop or enter our first chapter contest. Then, when you're ready, Elite Membership delivers writing groups, personal coaching, and a curated community. With Bardsy, your work will captivate everyone, from agents to publishers, and, most importantly, your readers.